Hi, my name's Bob Brown and welcome to No Particular Topic. I want to go back and talk about one of my 2003 cases. This one was pretty frustrating, mostly because of all the bureaucracy involved. It wasn't a difficult case in terms of the mechanics, but the bureaucracy, oh my God. I call this one the Colombian Connection. This crash involved three vehicles. The first was a 1998 Volkswagen GTI. The second was a 1990 Ford Taurus. And the third was a 2003 Ford F-250 pickup truck. Although this is one incident, there were two separate crashes involved here. The first was when Vehicle 1 struck Vehicle 2, and the second was the deadly one, when Vehicle 3 struck Vehicle 2. The weather conditions for this crash were horrendous. There was torrential rains going on at the time, which is not uncommon for where we live in South Florida because, well, we do live in the tropics after all. And this was no exception. It was pouring at the time of the crash, and there was virtually no visibility or very little visibility. So traffic conditions were horrible. Here's what happened. The silver Taurus was eastbound on Immokalee Road. The blue Volkswagen GTI was not far behind. Again, there was torrential rains with almost no visibility. Meanwhile, the westbound Ford F-250 approached. Back in 2003, Immokalee Road was only 2 lanes. It was also a no passing zone, which means there was double yellow lines on that roadway, which indicates no passing. Well, I had a couple of really good witnesses for that crash. One of them was directly behind the silver Taurus, and the other one was behind that witness. Well, the blue Volkswagen was behind those two witnesses. The one thing they both said in common was how bad the weather was. They drove at about 45 miles an hour. The speed limit was 55, but they only drove at 45 because they were so scared. It was just raining so hard and there was just no visibility. Well, one of them said, some crazy guy in a blue car went right by me. That car passed, that was Vehicle 2, Vehicle 1, the blue Volkswagen, passed eastbound in the westbound lane, went by her, and she said, oh my God, this guy is nuts. And he went by, and then the second witness, the one that was behind the Taurus, said something similar. But she had a little bit of a better view. And she said, this guy, he must have been doing about 70, and all of a sudden he cuts back in again, or at least tried to get back in the eastbound lane last second. And when he tried cutting back in, that's when he hit the back of the Taurus. Once that happened, the Volkswagen continued southeast onto the grass shoulder and continued southeast until it came to final rest, partially on the grass shoulder and partially in a wooded area. They kind of butted up against each other. As for the Taurus, that rotated and continued northeast, but as it entered the westbound lane, along came that truck, the F-250, and it just plowed right into the right side of that Taurus. They both now fused together, rotated counterclockwise in a northwest direction, and came to final rest on the north shoulder of Immokalee Road. Here's some photographs I took at that crash. This is a view from just west of the crash site. The reason you're seeing two of the exact same picture is because I just want to show you that I did not crop or alter the pictures in any way in terms of content. I did, however, enhance the image quite a bit. The original on the left is real muddy looking, soft, and it just, it's kind of a crappy picture, to be honest. That's not my fault. That's the camera. It was my personal camera, a 3.1 megapixel, because we didn't have digital cameras issued to us back then. Everything was film. This is a larger version of that same image. That's a view from the south shoulder where the Volkswagen came to final rest. Now we're looking in the opposite direction where my back is to the Volkswagen, which is a west to northwest view. Those green arrows show furrows left by the Volkswagen. The red one is where the car rotated, and those are where the front tires crossed over each other, simply known as crossovers. This view provides a pretty good shot of the Volkswagen's front end damage at its area of final rest. If you look to the upper right, you can see where the other two vehicles ended up. Of course, there's my sergeant walking right in front of my camera when I took that picture. As for that Volkswagen, we're going to step away from that for right now, but there's a lot going on with that Volkswagen we will get back to. But now, let's take a look at the other part of the crash. Just so you know, it's not necessarily the worst wreckage I've ever seen, but it's up there as a top contender. Now we're on the North Grass shoulder west of the Volkswagen. This was one of those holy shit type of crashes. This is what's called a non-survivable crash. There is no way anyone in that Taurus could survive that. That poor woman didn't stand a chance. She's under that blue tarp at the lower left of that image. Here's an angle from behind the truck. The Taurus looks like it went through a shredder. One of the things I used to do was get on top of some kind of vehicle to get a unique vantage point. In this instance, it was a fire truck. If you look in the middle of the shot, you'll see an ambulance with two guys sitting on its bumper. The guy to our left is the driver of the Volkswagen. He was the cause of this whole mess. The one on the right was the driver of the pickup truck. I'm going to talk about both of these guys in just a little bit. But first, I have one more shot from the top of that fire truck. And it is a doozy. And if any moment is a holy shit moment, this is it. Now you can really see the impact to that Taurus. That F-250 went through that car as if it was made out of aluminum foil. And, for those of you from Europe, aluminium. In the course of my investigation on scene, I did speak with driver one, and he did indicate he came from some bar prior to this. But I also noticed he had the smell of alcohol in his breath, and it was noticeable. On top of that, he also said, and this is the odd thing, it was pouring down really hard, and he couldn't hardly see, even with his windshield wipers on. I'm like, then why are you passing cars and stuff like that? He just didn't have an answer for it. I'm like, okay, whatever. So at that point, I did have a legal blood withdrawal done on him. EMS did it for me. And that's because, well, there's potential criminal charges involved here because he was at fault and alcohol was involved. From that point, I then went over and took a pretty good look at his car while it was still on scene. And, well, here's what I found. I noticed right away there was ice on the right rear area of his floor, along with some leaves. Those leaves were everywhere in the woods right next to his car. There was also some ice right around his gas pedal, along with those leaves. I then decided to go to the right side of his car in the wooded area. Relatively close to his car was broken pieces of a styrofoam cooler. And underneath that, I saw some Bud Light beer cans. And just a little bit further out, I found another Bud Light beer can. Clearly, I suppose in a panic, he decided to try and dump the evidence. I then went and spoke with driver 3. He was a really nice guy. And when I did speak with him, I noticed the smell of alcohol in his breath. And I'm like, God, not again. Anyway, he gave me some background information, and apparently they were all out four-wheeling, in case you didn't figure that out yourself, because that ATV was in the back of his truck, and it was full of mud. And the reason it's full of mud is because there's an area out in the county where kids go four-wheeling, and there's swampy, muddy areas out there, and they go and drink beer and have a good time. And well, he did tell me he stopped drinking. I'm not sure how long, but according to him, a considerable amount of time before he drove. He felt he was okay. And he kind of did seem okay. And I asked him, is it okay if I get a blood sample from you? And he goes, yeah. That's what I did. I was going to get it anyway, but at least he volunteered it. Sort of. And back to EMS, and they took his blood from him. By the way, if you're wondering why I showed the picture of the first driver, well, there's a reason for that, and I'm going to go into that in just a little bit. This is what I charged driver 1 and driver 3 with. When the blood results came back for driver 1, it came back as 0.18. The legal limit in Florida is 0.08. He was over double the limit. I charged him with number 1, DUI manslaughter. Number 2 was DUI with serious bodily injury. The reason for the serious bodily injury is because the passenger in vehicle 3 broke her wrist. Then for number 3, DUI with property damage. That damage applies to all of the vehicles involved. And then finally, passing in a no passing zone. As for driver 3, he had a blood alcohol content of 0.08. I mean, talk about bad luck. If this guy just simply waited, 15, 20 minutes before he got in his truck, he probably would have dropped down to a 0.07 and he would have been in the clear. But instead, I had to charge him with a basic DUI, which was a misdemeanor. Whereas driver 1, his DUI manslaughter was a felony. There's a couple of ways to make your charges. Let's say you're driving around in your patrol car and you see somebody driving erratically and you stop them and you find out they're driving under the influence. Okay, well, you arrest them right there on the spot, take them to the jail and process them there. Or if you stop somebody, they have a warrant, you arrest them right then and there and take them to the jail. That's one way of doing it. When it comes to a traffic homicide, there's a lot more involved. I've got to process the scene, take photos, do interviews, collect evidence, process vehicles, attend autopsies, produce a detailed report, make charges and arrests, if applicable, and confer with the state attorney's office, and whatever else needs doing. If I don't arrest them right there at the scene, then I have to put together what's called a capias, and that is a report that you file with the state attorney's office, which shows all the charges, and you put together that packet and you give them everything, including the recordings, the blood results, the report, and all of the interviews. And sometimes there's a lot of interviews. There's more than you would think. For example, it's not just the people who saw something. Like the people who were involved with the crash in terms of seeing it. But there's also other types of witnesses. EMS, the fire department, the sheriff's department, and anyone who's on scene there. So you got to get interviews with all of them. That can be pretty time consuming, especially it's hard with the fire department because they're 24 on, 48 off, and you got to kind of work around their schedule. In this instance, I went ahead and went with the capias because what happens if you arrest somebody right then and there, a timer starts. And what that means is the state attorney has to file charges within 30 days. I think it's 30 days. It's been a while. I can't quite remember the exact days, but it's something like that, 30 days. I'm going to go with that. And so once you do that, you have to have everything I just described done, packaged within 30 days. Well, that's not always possible. So you just do things in a different way. It's the same thing, but there's no timer. That's all there is in terms of a difference. When it comes to filing charges and stuff on either driver, it's the same. So I would write a capias on the at-fault driver, number one, and then also with the not at-fault driver, number three, because he was also DUI. I was able to knock out the paperwork for driver 3 pretty quick because it was just a simple DUI. And all I did was call him on the phone and said, hey, can you meet me at the jail? And he said, yeah. And he did. It got processed. He was in and out real quick. And after that, he went to court and pled, I think he pled no contest, which means I'm not saying I'm guilty. I'm not saying I'm not guilty, which is pretty much what I would have done too. But anyway, he got the mandatory minimums and that was that. As for driver 1, well, that took a lot longer. And the reason for that was because of all the things I showed you earlier I had to do. And well, I did finish with him and I put together my packet, brought it over to the state attorney's office, and they filed charges against him. And they said, go ahead, arrest him. And I went over to his house, knocked on the door. His parents answered the door. And I said, hey, is Roman here? No, Roman not here. They were from, they were Spanish. And I said, okay, well, when's he going to be home? They go, oh, Roman no live here no more. And I'm like, what? I go, but this is the address he gave for his home. They go, yeah, he doesn't live here. I go, well, where is he? And they go, we don't know. And I'm like, okay, here we go. They knew exactly where he was. Well, I never did get a straight answer out of them. And I told him, I said, look, if you know where he's at and you're not telling me the truth, I'm going to come back and charge you guys with obstruction. In reality, I couldn't prove if that was true or not true in terms of whether what they told me was true. So I left and I'm like, God. Well, I went to the state attorney's office and they issued a warrant for his arrest. Warrants are issued by sheriff's department. Well, the sheriff's department, they couldn't find this guy either. I mean, he was gone. I'm like, geez, I don't know how I'm going to get this guy back. And I thought to myself, I go, well, I'm going to contact America's Most Wanted. They're really good at finding people. So that's what I did. I put together a packet for them and they aired it and it came out great. I mean, I was like shocked. I'm going, hey, that's my case. And they did, again, a great job of explaining everything. So at that point, I did start to get some tips. And I'm like, wow, this kind of works. Well, most of the tips didn't pan out, but there was one in particular which I'm like, huh, this looks promising. It was someone who claimed to know the family, And so I contacted that person, not directly. You don't do it that way. You do it through the show itself. And that way they can stay anonymous. And I did find out where he was at. He was in Medellin, Colombia. I'm like, what? This guy left the whole country. And I'm like, oh my God. Well, there's only one thing left to do, and that is fill out what's called a red notice. Real quick, if you're wondering, would it have made a difference if I arrested driver one right there at the crash scene? Well, the answer to that is no, because he would have made bail and still taken off. As for driver one, I'm thinking, well, I know he's in Medellin, Colombia, according to, anyway, that tip, but I gotta figure out a way to confirm that before I go any further. So what I did was I said, I got an idea. I'm gonna make a fake Facebook account because this guy's kind of a narcissist and a partier on top of it. So I thought, this guy's probably on social media. So what I did was I created a fake Facebook account and I looked up his name, Roman Sebastian Saldarriaga. I'm thinking like, well, that's not a normal name, so he should be really easy to find. It's a common name in Colombia. So I went through a zillion Roman Sebastian Saldarriagas, and I just kept going through name after name after name. And I did have an advantage, and that is I knew what he looked like. I had photographs and everything I needed. So I kept scrolling through the name Saldarriaga, and then all of a sudden I'm like, there he is. He was in one of the photos on Facebook on his own account. So I'm like, wow, okay, I know he's there. So the next step is to contact our government. And in order to get somebody back, you have to get what's called a red notice. And that's done through Interpol. Interpol handles everything outside of the US. So I got the packet and filled it all out. It was like 15 pages along with some other information. And it was pretty easy to fill out. And I mailed it back. And I waited. And I waited. Did I mention I waited? It took forever. So I started making phone calls and I called someone, well, who I thought was in charge of that particular area for red notices. And he said, oh no, you need to talk to this guy over here. So I called that guy and that guy goes, oh no, then I contacted that one. That one said, oh no, you need to contact that one over there. This went on for, I was losing my mind. And I finally ended up back at the first guy I talked to. And he said, okay, hang on. I know you've been waiting for this for a while. Let me get with this one guy. He's the one I think you want to speak with. So he did hook me up with that guy. And indeed, he was the correct guy. He did look into it. And he said, well, Colombian police went after Saldarriaga and found where he lived. And they saw him there. I'm like, oh, this is it. They're going to extradite his ass, if you excuse the expression. Well, No, they weren't. And why not? Here's the thing. We have an extradition agreement with Colombia. Well, it includes murder, anything drug related, and things along those lines. But that agreement doesn't include DUI manslaughter. And I gave him an earful. I go, you gotta be frigging kidding me. It's still a major crime. And he goes, yeah, but nobody's ever asked for extradition for that, and there is no agreement. He goes, so there's nothing I can do for you. So that was that. He got away with it. But if he ever tries to come back into the US, he is flagged in the system, and the warrant out for his arrest will always be active. It doesn't expire. So that's pretty much the end of the Saldariaga story. He got away with it. That mother... If interested, I do have another YouTube channel. It's called 8 and 35mm Restoration. On that channel, I posted a whole bunch of my old home movies. Some of them I shot in sound, and some were silent. Of the silent ones, I did add some music, voiceovers, and sound effects on some of them. I also have a whole bunch of tutorials on how to digitize and process 8mm movies, still photography slides, photographs, and negatives. If you're interested, I did put a link in the description below.